you screw up and kill me, that's one thing. But if you screw up and turn me into a vegetable or brain dead, just kill me. Homunculus is a seinen Japanese manga created by Hideo Yamato and explores the procedure of trepanation, a procedure that requires the drilling of a hole in a person's head. The story is a psychological thriller that begs the question, what does it mean to be human? One thing I love about being a storyteller in the comics and manga space is the wide variety of stories that you can tell. Whether it's a story about jujutsu sorcerers fighting against good and evil, or a girl traveling around with a vending machine in a fantasy world, the only limit is your imagination. As well, the messages that you can tell in these stories is super expansive. Never think that manga needs to look a certain way or tell a particular type of story. Art styles range from Kishimoto's Naruto to Boichi's Sunken Rock. As well, you can tell stories that inspire hope to the reader, stories that show surviving a life filled with darkness, or in the case of Homunculus, a story about what it means to be human. The story follows Suzumu Nakoshi, a 34-year-old man, homeless, living in his car. Although homeless, he declines the lifestyle of those who are homeless, declining many of their invitations and friendships and even lying to most of them. One day he's approached by Manabu Ito, a medical student who is willing to pay 700,000 yen to Nakoshi in order to allow him to do the procedure of trepanation on him. That's around $4,800 to let someone drill a hole in your head. Would you do it? Reluctant at first, it takes Nakoshi losing his car and desperate for cash to agree to Ito's terms. Now before we go further, we have to understand what trepanation is. Trepanation is the oldest surgical procedure with archaeological evidence. Many cultures and civilizations have been found with holes specifically put in people's skulls. In the 1960s, voluntary trepanation was performed by people who were interested in enhancing mental power and well-being, believing that this procedure would give them enlightenment and even open their third eye and give them a sixth sense. This is the very reason why Ito is interested in this procedure. He wants to see someone experience this euphoria by doing trepanation on them. The sequence is pretty simple, with Ito drilling a hole in Nakoshi's head and then giving him the painkillers to avoid the feeling of the effects of the surgery. Ito explains that this procedure allows more blood flow to the head and to access more than just 10% of the brain. He also explains that it could take some days for the effects to happen. And this is where things start to get eerie and uncomfortable. When Nakoshi is alone, he finds the old files of past candidates who had had trepanation done to them. Not only are we learning that some of the past candidates have committed suicide and other crazy after effects, but Nakoshi is being spied on by an unknown entity. Not just that, but things around him start shifting as the effects of trepanation set in. Nakoshi's vision starts to change as he starts seeing people with weird body shapes, disfigured bodies, illusions, and he even has the ability to see people's inner soul. What Ito teaches Nakoshi about these visions that he has is that he is able to see homunculi, or the singular version, homunculus. Homunculus refers to the relationship that the body and the brain have with each other. How is it that when you touch something with your hands, that feeling is felt via your fingers, but it's interpreted through your brain? What if there was a little man in your brain helping your body and brain connect in such a way? The series begs the question, what does it mean to be human, and centers this question around the visions or homunculi that Nakoshi sees on people. Because of his ability, he's able to see what unique traits, labels, tropes, fears, and emotions make up each individual. Every individual's homunculi is how they perceive themselves. For example, we have a mob boss who is deep down just a crying child and a robot, or a young coming-of-age girl whose identity is like sand due to her constantly adapting to her surroundings and unsure of who she truly is. Homunculi are the monsters that make up our human. If all labels are removed from people like layers of an onion, does that mean they disappear in the end? If you take off all the labels that surround your front, is there nothing left in the middle? Are you something that was created and molded by your parents, society, and the world? No. Then who are you? When reading Homunculus, I thought it was going to turn into a story about a man who was able to uncover the darkness that enveloped others, and help them champion the monstrous aspects that made them into who they are. What it turned out to be is the story of a man's selfish desire to learn what it means to be human, while also destroying the very essence of what that means in order to fulfill his own selfish ego. With every encounter that Nakoshi has with the homunculus, he uses that experience and that person as a way to find out more about himself. And as the series progresses, we learn that Nakoshi is the true monster, not the homunculi. He's willing to destroy everyone around him in order to get to his end goal. The series begs the question, what does it mean to be human? What makes up a human? Are we born the way that we are? Are we programmed a certain way? And if so, how do we change our mindset in order to become better versions of ourselves? The series Homunculus follows the story of a selfish, egotistical man who is a monster to him and the people around him, a man who hates humans and yet wants to understand them better. It's a story of self-destruction as Nakoshi can't control his ego or impulses, and what you learn later is that the homunculi that he sees that represent the internal struggles that make up each individual are actually the representations of his own perceptions he gives them. He views everyone as a monster that needs to be fixed, without realizing that he is the one that is the monster. It's truly telling because we as humans project our own problems onto others in the ways that we see them. Maybe the things that make us monsters are what make us unique. Maybe the unique struggles that we all carry within ourselves is what make us human. And if that's the case, then it's comforting to know that everyone around us is also struggling with something internally, which gives opportunity for connection. And let's face it, in a world that is filled with so much turmoil, violence, and hatred for our fellow man, maybe we could use some more connection. Maybe that's what makes us human. Our ability to connect with one another. What I love about stories like Homunculus is it's just so different than like other manga that's normally recommended to me. Like typically on Twitter or online, I'll just get like messages saying, you've got to read Naruto, you've got to read Jujutsu Kaisen, you know, you've got to read One Piece. And all of those are fun, but those aren't actually the type of stories that I personally enjoy. Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to read them. In fact, I'm currently reading Jujutsu Kaisen right now. But the type of stories that I personally like are typically like very chill, relaxing, maybe have some fan service in it, or like super dark and like supernatural like Homunculus. And that's what's so awesome about being a comic and manga creator is that you can tell stories that have just so many different types of genres, so many different messages. My Sexy Witch Academia is a story about a character trying to overcome their dark past while also struggling with the responsibility of being the greatest witch in the world. What do you do with that kind of responsibility? What do you do with that kind of power? In Super Plumber Sisters, the story is about two siblings who fight supernatural beings but also wrestle with their relationship as each of them has to accept each other's various personality, struggles, and growth. In my main series, The Girl with the Megafist follows the story of Eliana, who is fighting against love and fate. It's a girl who has been chosen by the gods and given a massive responsibility to protect Earth. With all of the social pressures around her, she asks herself, why should she do this? Why should she obey the gods? What are the consequences of not following the gods? And how much of a say does she have in her own life? Each of these stories pulls from my own personal life experiences with both religion, family, and being the greatest I ever was. I can say that with a straight face. But what I love about comics and manga is the ability that these stories have to connect us and to give us these vibrant messages. I would never have guessed that reading Homunculus, I would get a deep psychological dive into what it means to be a human, how you see people in the world, how your own emotions and personal perceptions affect the way that you see and treat other people. To me, it's a must read. It's definitely a little weird, definitely rated R, but if you do have the stomach to read something this, and if you want something very interesting, I suggest checking out Homunculus. So thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. I'm gonna go read some Jujutsu Kaisen, and then I'll tell you guys what I think of it. Peace.